My name is Salimul Haq. I'm the director of the International Center for Climate Change and Development at the Independent University in Bangladesh. And I've been associated with this Resilience Hub and the Race to Resilience that is the overarching framework under which the Resilience Hub was set up last year in Glasgow in COP26. And it was a great success. One of the innovations that we introduced last year in Glasgow was because many people were not able to travel to Glasgow for the COP. We had online participation from around the world in different regions, and the South Asia region was organized by my center in Dhaka. And we had every day, we had an online event for the region, and then we fed that into the COP in Glasgow. It worked quite well, but one of the difficulties we had was doing it synchronously at the same time. It just didn't reach the Glasgow group in time. So what we decided to do this year is we'd repeat it, but we do the online versions earlier and have them recorded, and then bring the recordings here. And so all the different regions have done their sets of online events, and those online events are now going to be broadcast here and shared. Some people who are here will share what they did. Those that aren't here, we have the videos of. One of the ways that we did it in South Asia was we invited various groups representing different constituencies. So we had one mangrove forest constituency. We had one mountain constituency. We had one city waste pickers constituency. So we had a number of very interesting all across South Asia. So none of these are single country, they're cross-cutting in the region. Groups coming together, talking about things that they're doing, sharing what they're doing. And for each of them, we ask them to conclude their session with a message for COP27 here. So I think those are the messages that we will be seeing from them here. And my colleague Sarah and my other colleague Celine, who is not here with us, the two of them organized and managed this, and we're very pleased to be able to share it with you, and I hope that you'll find it interesting. I'll stop there. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind and informative description of the South Asia Resilience Hub. Next up, we have Ms. Maliha Mashfeka Malek, Research Officer at the International Center for Climate Change and Development, to share the key messages from the South Asia Resilience Hub we had in September. Maliha, can you hear us?
Yes, am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Can you turn on your camera?
Yes, the camera is on, I guess. Can you see my screen?
This is the flood video.
Sarah, can you?
Yeah.
My screen is visible?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, greetings everyone. Myself, Maliha Mashfeka Malek. Currently, I'm working as a research officer at International Center for Climate Change and Development. During the last 10 days of September 2022, we did the virtual session of South Asia Region Resilience Hub, and our modality was a bit different. So I'm going to present a short summary of our Resilience Hub. I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you. So here, the objective of the session was to bring the local voices and to share their knowledge and experiences, and to hear from the local champions what are the situation in different countries of the South Asia region. And we have a very interesting constituency, the people, the indigenous group from Bangladesh, the farmers group from India, mountain community from Nepal and Bangladesh, mangrove community from India and Bangladesh, both climate migrant from Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and also the devastating Pakistan flood. We have the community from them also, and also youth community. And another interesting part about the climate resilient city planning initiative So here's the schedule that we have, and during the 10 days we have 10 interesting sessions, and it was very interactive. People from the local voices bring their voices to reach this global platform. And and now I'm going to describe about each sessions. Like the first day we have a session from the Modibur region of Bangladesh. They represent the indigenous community of Bangladesh, and it's a very noted quote that opportunity is something we need to embrace. So it's a voice from a local people, and the situation here is that it's a shal forest. So the shal trees are getting decreased due to the like human induced interventions, also the impact of climate change. They are in trade, but still local people have their own knowledges, and they are harvesting their knowledge to become resilient in these vulnerable situations. And it seems that they are also taking interventions like rainwater harvesting, crop rotation, based on the changes of the weather. And the second day was based on the mangrove forest restoration in the coastal belt, Cox's district of Bangladesh. So there is an institution called NACOM, and they have taken initiative to build the mangrove forest community who actually restored the ecosystem through biodiversity conservation and social protection. And it is found that it's a very resilient way to fight against the tropical cyclones, because as you know that Bangladesh is frequently hit by tropical cyclones, and day by day it's getting devastating. So it's very important to take some natural-based solution and some resilient long-term approach to fight this adversity. Then there's an interesting group from Women-led Community Resilient Initiative from India, and it is found that the impact of climate change is also severe at the agriculture sector, also India, some part of India. And this group represent that how local people, like women group, can be a very like a very strong tool to cope up with the climate smart agriculture. And it is found that like promoting the entrepreneurship through local community, it's very useful to fight the thing and make it more resilient. And but there is also a message that it's very important to give them the supporting techniques, tools, and finance to enhance these approaches in the agriculture sector. And there is another session from Chittagong Hill Tribes, that's the mountain community from Bangladesh. And the message from the local champion is that it is very important that local community have access to the climate change and adaptation information so that they can become resilient. And they also initiate that not only the locally led adaptation approaches and their indigenous knowledge, but also external help can make the situation more strengthening to fight, because when we have the financial support and capacity building through different initiatives, they have more knowledge and capacity to deal with the situation. And there is an example of the a secondary city example, like how we can preserve the ecosystem in this adverse climatic situation. We can preserve the water bodies. We can promote farming on the community scale. We can promote individual food growth practices. And then there is another session from the Pakistan flood communities, and it is found that like they are suffering at beyond imagination, and they have a message that people are taking their initiative, and people centric approach is more quick and sustainable. So they have the urge to so that their government would make collaboration with them and make their initiative more strengthful and resilient. And there is an association from mangrove community, India and Bangladesh, and it is found that photo voice, digital diary, these are the new innovative method to bring the story of the local community to the other people. And visual method is very effective to catch the message of the people rather than reading any hard scientific paper. And it's very important to take initiative to increase the capacity in choosing alternative climate adaptation livelihood, because livelihood is in threat, and so that the dependence on the forest will decrease and the mangrove will stay safe, because Sundarban is working as a natural shield against these tropical cyclones. And there is another session which is quite interesting because it is the voices from far western mountain region of Nepal, and they shared their story, and it is from their experience they shared that yes, the climate change issue is not that much prioritized in Nepal, especially people and the global community don't hear the story of the mountains from community from Nepal, and it is they also showed shared their experience and pictures of that the glacier is melting and they are having the lake burst flooding, and it's very important to do a very intensive vulnerability assessment and hazard mapping so that local people will know what's happening, which region is vulnerable or more exposed to the climate induced hazard, so they can be prepared and strengthen their capacity. And also there is a need to build an early warning system for the local community. And they shared that yes, the situation of the glacial mountain is really scary, and it's going really alarming situation day by day. And also there is a session from the youth community, and it is found that the youth is playing a crucial role in the community resilience, and they are taking participation in volunteer work, they are raising awareness, they're taking initiatives, and they are making, they are also mitigating the gap between the services and government and administration and local community. So youth is very important, empowering youth to fight the resilient solution for climate change is very important. And there's another session from climate migrants of South Asia, and it is noted from the Mayor of Khulna that we are in great state drinking water crisis, and drinking water is one of the major component for those regions which are extremely heated by the climate change. And it is also found that the climate migrants are also in the threat of the settlement, because they are informal settlement and they don't have the right to land, so they are more vulnerable, and they are also in threat of the eviction. So it's very important to ensure shelter for the climate migrant and to integrate a planning system of the city which consider the climate migrants. And there is a very interesting component of this year virtual session of the Resilience Hub. Some professional cartoonists listen our story and attended the sessions, and they try to portray the key messages of the sessions. And as you can see that this is the message from the mangrove station that they have portrayed, that mangrove is taking care of everyone in every component, and we need to respect and conserve the mangrove. And there's another cartoon from the session of the indigenous communities is like visualizing that climate change is threatening the livelihood, and there is an urge to find alternative livelihood to become resilient against climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Maliha. It is indeed very important that the communities invest in themselves to make their livelihood and be the voice of the voiceless for their communities. So next we will be sharing a video on Karachi, a city in Pakistan, on why it floods because of its poor drainage system when it pours. So the video credit goes to Urban Resource Center, URC, Desert and Rural Development Organization, DARD, Roshan Samaj Development Organization, RSDO, Mehran Education Health Welfare Association, MEWA. Can we play the video?
So तकरीबन 60 some नालाज हैं all told. उनका नक्शा भी है, उसमें सारी डिटेल्स भी है नक्शे की. मगर एक बड़ा मसला जो है ड्रेनेज के हवाले से, you have 64 nalas, big nalas, but you have thousands of little nalas that feed into these nalas, or rather you had. मुझे एक 5 एकड़ का प्लॉट दिया जाता है कि यहाँ तुम्हें मकान बना दें, तो पहला काम मैं ये देखता हूँ कि यहाँ से पानी कहाँ से बहता है. And usually there is a very definite slope to a particular place from where water goes. So the first thing I do is I secure that nala, either by not building on it or by redirecting it in a manner that جو exit point ہے اس کی وہ وہی رہے, entrance or exit point. This is normal planning practice. It has not been followed in this city. It is the job of the architect, planner, to see that on his site it is followed, and it is the job of the SBCA.
یہ چھوٹے نالے بنتے کیسے ہیں؟
ہے نا, آپ پانی چھوڑ دیں, پانی آئے گا. بہت سارے چھوٹے چھوٹے, یعنی یہ آپ کا مین نالا جا رہا ہے, بارش یہاں ہو رہی ہے تو چھوٹے چھوٹے نالوں سے وہ اس مین نالے میں جائیں گے.
تو نیچرل ایک ٹرین کے حساب سے
ہاں, اسی کے حساب سے ہوگا نا. If you take these two big rivers, Malir and Liari, یہ جتنے بھی 65 نالے ہیں, they come and drain into these two rivers, and then the catchment areas of those nalas, they drain into those nalas. So there is a whole network that comes together, and finally it falls into the sea. یہ سارے چھوٹے چھوٹے نالے جو ہیں یہ تو غائب ہو گئے.
اس بات کو اس طرح سے سمجھتے ہیں کہ اگر شہر میں ہزاروں نالے ہوتے تو ان نالوں کا پانی سب سے پہلے آ کر یہ جو 64 بڑے نالے ہیں ان میں آ کر بہتا, اور یہ جو 64 بڑے نالے ہیں یہ کنیکٹڈ ہیں لیاری اور ملیر ریور سے, اور جب یہ پانی ملیر اور لیاری ریور میں آ کر گرتا تو وہ سمندر کی طرف بہہ جاتا, بجائے اس کے کہ وہ شہر کو فلڈ کرتا.
سڑک جو بنتی ہے اس کے ٹینڈر میں سڑک کے ساتھ ایک ڈرینیج ہوتی ہے. مسئلہ یہ ڈرینیج جاتی کہاں ہے؟ کہیں بھی نہیں جاتی. سڑک کے ساتھ بن گئی, جہاں سڑک ختم ہو رہی ہے ڈرینیج بھی وہیں ختم ہو گئی. یہی دیکھیں شہید ملت کا جو بھی بنا ہے. You see? Now because of this, the roads get converted into nalas. That's why they flood. کوئی اور جگہ تو ہے نہیں جانے کی, تو وہیں سے جاتے ہیں, and like this they find their way to the sea, first into the bigger nalas and finally into the sea.
سڑک جب بنتی ہے تو اس کے ساتھ ٹینڈر میں ایک ڈرینیج ہوتی ہے. مسئلہ یہ ہے کہ وہ ڈرینیج جاتی کہاں ہے؟ کہیں نہیں جاتی. سڑک کے ساتھ بن گئی, جہاں سڑک ختم ہوتی ہے وہیں ڈرینیج بھی ختم ہو جاتی ہے. اسی لیے روڈز جو ہیں وہ نالوں میں تبدیل ہو جاتے ہیں, اور اسی وجہ سے فلڈنگ ہوتی ہے, کیونکہ پانی کے پاس کوئی اور جگہ نہیں ہے جہاں سے وہ نکل جائے. اسی لیے وہ سڑک کے ذریعے بہتے ہوئے بڑے نالوں کی طرف جاتے ہیں, اور پھر اس کے بعد ان بڑے نالوں کے ذریعے وہ سمندر کی طرف بہہ جاتے ہیں.
KDA جب بنا اور 1958 میں بڑی بڑی اس کی اسکیم شروع ہوئی ایوب کے دور میں, تو ان نئی اسکیموں کے لیے بھی ڈرینیج کو الگ رکھا گیا اور سوئچ کے نظام کو الگ رکھا گیا. یہ فارمل سیکٹر اسکیمز تھی, مگر ساتھ کے ساتھ ایک بہت بڑی انفارمل سیکٹر بھی ڈیولپ ہونا شروع ہوا, اور جو غیر رسمی آبادیاں تھیں ان کو بھی ضرورت پیش آئی کہ وہ اپنا سوئچ جو ہے کہیں نہ کہیں ڈال سکیں. تو جو وہی جگہ تھی ان کے لیے سوئچ ڈالنے کی, وہ جو برساتی نالے تھے شہر کے اس میں سوئچ ڈالنا شروع کیا. آہستہ آہستہ یہ جو طریقہ تھا برساتی نالوں میں سوئچ ڈالنے کا, یہ KDA کی اسکیمز نے بھی اپنا لیا, کیونکہ کوئی ڈرینیج سسٹم جو ہے وہ ڈیولپ نہیں ہو سکا جو کہ سوئچ سسٹم سے الگ تھا. اور میرے خیال میں آپ سمجھیے 1975-76 ایک ہم ڈیٹ دے سکتے ہیں میرے خیال میں, جب شہر کی بیشتر جو نئی آبادیاں تھیں جو بن رہی تھیں, فلیٹ سکیمز تھیں, ہاؤسنگ سکیمز تھیں, ان کے پاس کوئی جگہ نہیں تھی اپنا سویج ڈالنے کے لیے علاوہ اس کے کہ وہ برساتی نالوں میں ڈالیں، کیونکہ ٹرنک سویج نہیں تھے جو کہ اس سویج کو کسی ٹریٹمنٹ پلانٹ تک لے کے جاتے. اور اس کے بعد سے آپ یہ سمجھیے کہ کراچی کا جو سویج ہے وہ ایک پلانڈ طریقے سے برساتی نالوں میں ڈالا گیا ہے.
کے ڈی اے جب بنا 1958 میں بڑی بڑی اس کی اسکیم شروع ہوئیں ایوب خان کے دور میں، تو نئی اسکیموں کے لیے ڈرینیج کے نظام کو الگ اور سیوریج کو الگ رکھا گیا. یہ فارمل سیکٹر اسکیمز تھیں، پر ساتھ ہی ایک بہت بڑا انفارمل سیکٹر بننا شروع ہو گیا، اور جو کچی اور غیر رسمی آبادیاں تھیں ان کو بھی ضرورت پیش آئی ڈرینیج اور سیوریج سسٹم کی. تو جو واحد جگہ تھی ان کے سیوریج کو ایڈجسٹ کرنے کے لیے وہ شہر کے برساتی نالے تھے، تو ان میں سیوریج ڈالنا شروع کر دیا.
تو اس طرح سے جو سلج ہے سویج کا جو فضلہ ہے وہ برساتی نالوں میں جذب ہونا شروع ہوا. بارش ہو جاتی تھی تو وہ صاف ہو جاتا تھا، کئی سال بارش نہیں ہوتی تھی تو وہ جم جاتا تھا اور وہ صاف نہیں ہو سکتا تھا. اس کے بعد ایک بہت بڑا پلان تھا، ورلڈ بینک کا بھی تھا شروع میں، میرے خیال میں 80s میں تھا، اور ایشین ڈیولپمنٹ بینک کا بھی تھا جو 90s تک چلتا رہا. ورلڈ بینک کا تو میرے جہاں تک مجھے یاد پڑتا ہے وہ کراچی واٹر اینڈ سویج بورڈ کو ری آرگنائز کرنے کا تھا، بہتر بنانے کا تھا، اس کی کیپیسٹی بڑھانے کا تھا. اس کے لیے کچھ ماڈل پروجیکٹس بھی شروع کیے گئے تھے. ایشین ڈیولپمنٹ بینک کا تھا وہ ایک سویج کا پلان تھا شہر کے لیے، اور اس کے تحت ٹرنک سویج ڈالے گئے سڑکوں کے ساتھ ساتھ. ٹریٹمنٹ پلانٹ کی آگمنٹیشن ہوئی، ایک نئی ٹریٹمنٹ پلانٹ پہ کام شروع کیا گیا اور وہ کمپلیٹ بھی ہوا اور کامیاب ٹریٹمنٹ پلانٹ تھی. مگر مسئلہ یہ تھا کہ اس ٹریٹمنٹ پلانٹ تک سویج نہیں پہنچ سکا، اور اس کی وجہ یہ ہے کہ وہ ٹرنک سویج جو تھے وہ خالی رہے. کوئی ایسا طریقہ نہیں سوچا گیا کہ ان ٹرنک سویج کو اس طرح سے ڈیزائن کیا جائے کہ وہ قدرتی نالوں سے سویج اٹھا لیں. نہ کوئی طریقہ ایسا سوچا گیا کہ قدرتی نالوں کا سویج ان ٹرنک سویج تک لے جایا جائے. چنانچہ سویج ویسے ہی بہتر رہا نیچرل ڈرینیج سسٹم میں، قدرتی نالوں میں، اور یہ ٹرنک سویج جو ہے خالی رہے. ایشین ڈیولپمنٹ بینک نے اپنی رپورٹوں میں اس ناکامیابی کا ذکر کیا ہے اور اس کو قبول کیا ہے.
Of course, sewage connectivity is a very big challenge for not only Pakistan but also Bangladesh, and it needs to be resolved as quickly as possible to avoid further distraction or loss of lives. Now I request Mr. Kabir Arora, the National Coordinator of the Alliance of Indian Waste Pickers. Kabir is also the Asian Outreach Coordinator of the Global Alliance of Waste Pickers. Kabir, please share with us about your work with the waste pickers community and their role in reducing carbon emissions and what are their key asks. Kabir will be joining us virtually.
Hi
Kabir, are you with
everyone,
us?
I'm able to hear all of you. I hope you are able to hear my voice. It is a pleasure to see Dr. Huck and Bijal Bain there, and sorry we couldn't participate in person. And this morning I was hearing the address of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He said that we are on the road to hell. And I would like to add to that key message that with the disproportionate impact on the working class, and also these are the working class people who have not put their foot on the accelerator. So I would like to clarify that the message which was delivered by the Secretary General, these are the aspects which we need to be highlighted in the discussion. Now coming to the point of waste pickers, The waste pickers have, if you look at it, the climate change related disasters, a lot of them weather related events, a lot of them perpetuate informality, and a lot of people are displaced from their traditional livelihood. So a lot of waste pickers that we see working from Dhaka to Karachi, from Srinagar to Kanyakumari in South Asia, you will see a lot of them are have been displaced from their traditional occupations by some or the other weather-related events. And once they shift to the city, the work of waste picking a lot of times end up in mitigating carbon emissions with the engagement with recycling. So if you look at waste pickers, pick up the material, sort it, segregate it, and then send it for recycling. In a lot of this work, you see carbon emissions coming down. So waste pickers who have been displaced by climate change contribute to the reduction of carbon emissions through their work. And then we see the wider disasters which are happening, weather related events which are happening, extreme weather related events which are happening, are having a disproportionate impact on waste pickers. Bijal Bain, I'm very sure, will be talking about home as a place of work in case of in other sectors, but here I would like to highlight a lot of waste pickers use home as their place of work where they store aggregate materials. Now imagine if you are living in Delhi and the temperature is 48-degree outside and your house is made out of tin or some sort of some sort of material which absorbs carbon, the temperature inside the house will be higher than outside. In addition, that the material you aggregated may have carbon in it, which absorbs a lot more carbon, so the temperature inside the house is increasing. And workers have to work in that environment inside the house. So this is making a lot of workers dehydrated. Some of them cannot function, some of them cannot have healthy lives. Similarly, when we have floods in the cities, the prices of the material go down. In addition to home being flooded and places of work being flooded, a lot of waste pickers are not able to work and lose their livelihood. Then the waste management facilities in entire South Asia, it's important to highlight, like whenever you say, oh, we need waste pickers integration, we should set up waste management facilities. What municipal authorities give us as if waste pickers are not human beings. They just give them 4 walls, probably a tin shed on the top, and then they have to work in that space. And imagine yourself with no window outside, with no cross ventilation, working in that infrastructure. It's actually a very difficult space. Not to forget that a lot of this work is also helping to reduce carbon emissions by having more decentralized waste management. So some of these concerns which are coming from this perspective. In addition, when we have weather-related event, a lot of informal workers in informal employment, including waste pickers, cannot travel to their work because the mobility services get disrupted. Then in the past few years, what we are seeing, say, floods in Pakistan have an impact on agriculture produce in Pakistan, which also means that will also have an inflationary impact on the working class, including waste pickers who will not have enough money to buy food and other items. So you see this impact which is coming. Now, what are our key asks in terms of discussion on climate change, particularly when we are looking at adaptation and when we are looking at infrastructure which we want to set up in the form of adaptation? These infrastructure need to be climate resilient. These need to be well ventilated where workers can work. We also have to think a lot of work of waste picking. Sometimes some of it has increase, because a lot of work of waste pickers is also engaging with plastic, and now there is a discussion globally on the question of plastic and regulating plastic production and recycling. So it may have a disproportionate impact on waste pickers because their livelihoods are directly related to plastics. So when we are looking at that aspect, we need to think about what is the possibility of just transition for the workers. An International Labour Organization has put together a framework on what should be done for just transition. So we should look at those aspects when we are working with the waste pickers. Then within the adaptation framework, we are looking at waste pickers work. A lot of waste pickers work at present is not very healthy, not very safe. So we need to look at how do we upgrade this occupation so that workers continue to do their work, get better and fair payment, and also have better, safer working environment which is not vulnerable to climate change related events. So these are the things which we need to keep in mind. And then the wider wider question of social protection, which sometimes we don't hear in the climate change discussion, is that what happens because when workers are making making transition at work, they need some sort of support from the state, and it should be part of the wider social protection dimension, which now is in discussion. And the social protection dimension need to have also support for housing, better housing. It also need to have support for insurance in case of weather-related events happen, both in terms of livelihood, home, as well as lives itself. So these are the points which I wanted to put across in this discussion, and I hope these messages are delivered to our policymakers there. Thank you.
Thank you, Kabir. Now I call upon Ms. Bijal Brahmabhat, the Director of Mahila Housing Seva Trust, MHT. She is recognized expert in habitat improvement through women empowerment, community development, climate resilience, and housing finance. She supervises the Mahila Housing Trust's operation at the national level and has proven experience in conceptualizing, planning, and managing slum, upgrading programs across India. In honor to her previous achievements, Ms. Bijal has recently been awarded the Prince Talal International Prize for Human Development under the theme Climate Action, hosted by the Ministry of Environment, Government of Arab Republic of Egypt. Today, Ms. Bijal will be sharing with us the amazing work she is doing with the Mahila Housing Trust, has been doing with poverty-driven based women workers. Ms. Bijal, the floor is yours.
So my organization, we work with poor women in informal sector across India. And, most of these women workers are actually, home-based workers. I just would like to say that I'll use some slides from my presentation to elaborate some concepts from our work, but would rather continue to speak orally. So across the globe, if you see, there are 260 million women and men who are employed as home-based workers. People who vend vegetables, people who are waste pickers, directly working from home like sewing or rolling incense sticks. In my country, India, the number goes to about 40.9 million, and 23% of these are women working in urban areas. So we began working with these poor women in informal sector, and as Kabir already said, their house is their workplace, and therefore it needs to be climate resilient. So we started working on 4 areas actually, and have added, a 4th one. So we started working on heat stress, water scarcity, flooding, and inundation. Inundation is important because, as you saw, when all the nalas overflow, it's also because of a little rain, not necessarily only due to flooding. And of course, now we have added water and vector-borne disease and air pollution. So these is the areas which are slow onset but potent disaster. We recently started working on a climate insurance scheme for the women that we have been working with, and we realized that their productivity due to heat, despite the fact that they were working from a house, was reduced to almost 1/3, their economic productivity. With a joint family, and some of the figures with the help of a survey that we conducted, we were able to know that with an average income of $295 per month, this is the family income, almost $70 were being spent due to loss of income and expenditure on heat across the 4-month season. Again, in rain, we saw much higher. So of the $295 monthly income, they were spending around $322 on the loss and repairing the damage, because every year you redo the roof and the walls so that the rain doesn't actually flood your house across the season. So that's the extent of loss and damage, even with slow onset disasters that these women are actually facing. And when we started working with them, we realized that, their thinking, because of the abject poverty, was very, very short term. So they would be worried about their children's fees or, the next day's meal probably, but not, so where was climate change? Where was the heat? And what about it? So the first thing that we began to do was very serious capacity building, which actually demystified all these scientific facts and gave them some numbers on how it was going to impact their life. But the one thing that really got them working, apart from their daily access to water or access to toilet issues, was the fact that they did not want their children to live the same life, or probably a life which was even worse due to climate change than what they were living now. And that's what got them together to work on such. For them, it was long term because their lives were so full of. So one message that we actually came across was that you really need to demystify some scientific facts. I'll go to a slide. Oh, this is a very powerful slide. So we were actually trying to teach them how to address water scarcity and also to teach these systems thinking approach. Because unless and until you address the entire system, it doesn't work for the poor. So we mapped the water cycle, and each element, for example, evaporation or rain runoff, was then put on a blue or a pink card with a rope. They held it, and when one node was pulled, all the entire other nodes started shaking, and that's how they understood that the entire ecosystem have to be addressed. So I think very, very powerful communication, which actually demystifies the science for the informal sector, and that can be done. Yet another, photograph where these women were actually taught to look at water quality, measure it to a certain extent, record it, because as the waters go down due to abundant water usage and there is a scarcity, the quality becomes a huge issue. And, and then they were told that if it goes beyond a certain limit in the report, you just have to approach your government. You cannot do any further. And the government laboratories. So I think that's the message that was given to them. I will not just, okay, let me just skip, okay. Here, while we were working on heat, and here I would like to talk about some of the collaborations which were disruptive. If you see the blue colored cool roof, it's a cool roof. And the one nearby is a hot roof. It's a tin sheet roof. So temperatures inside the house are 5 degrees higher as compared to outside, just because it's a tin sheet. And then we got this cool roof installed. We actually taught the women to take temperature through the loggers and compare it to the meteorological department forecast for that day. And then they realized that it was really a cooler roof and they wanted to adopt it, but not how it was. So they went back to the technology saying that, so the blue roof also, the cool roof also had corrugations, and they were not able to climb upon it and use it like a terrace. Because in hot countries like India, Bangladesh, people do use terraces to sleep on the rooftop because they can't afford ACs. So then the technologists actually amended the corrugations in the roof to make it accessible by the community so that they can use it like a terrace. So I think one of the key messages that I want to give here is that collaborations with the poor communities should be disruptive. So the learnings should be mutual, not one-sided, to be able to make it work for the poor. I won't go further, but some of the key things that we have really learned from our work across India, and also we work with partners in Nepal and Bangladesh. So I think first is, we really need to build the capacities of the informal community, especially women. And the approach, as I showed, should be socio-technical, and scientific facts need to be demystified in a very, very simple manner. Again, when workers, and I do also have a message for the workers' organizations like ours, when we approach the government, and we work with urban poor, so cities actually think specially, they plan specially for, so when you are talking to city authorities, they will talk about settlements, they'll talk about special area, and you are going with a worker's identity. So you sort of need to improve your language in a way that the worker's identity also get included with a spatial identity. As I said, disruptive collaborations with scientists, technologists, and city policymakers. Lastly, when this roof was actually amended, women actually started credit to take, buy the cool roof. That program has actually expanded now, and one of the reasons that they also took credit was not only the fact that it was cool, but it was also aspirational. It was glamorous, and that was important for our women. So we also learned that the poor, adopt technologies if they are affordable, not only affordable, but user-friendly, aspirational, and accessible. So it's not only the affordability which is the key criteria. So we need to devise financial inclusion programs to be able to address this. And lastly, what Kabir said, looking at the loss and damage, I would like to reiterate that climate change insurance become very heavily a part of the social protection programs of the developing countries like India, Bangladesh, and others in the South.
Thank you, Bijal. Your work is truly encouraging, and the work you do with the Mahila Housing Trust inspires us, and we sincerely hope more women are encouraged to work for women empowerment and join forces with the less fortunate communities. So now I call upon Ms. Roona Khan to wrap up the session and focus on key messages from the mangrove communities of the Sundarbans. Ms. Roona is the founder of Friendship, an international SPO established in 2002, and Friendship International is operating from 5 European countries. Friendship works for the most vulnerable and remote communities of Bangladesh for saving lives, poverty alleviation, climate adaptation, and empowerment, bringing direct services to 7 million lives a year. She is an advocate for climate change, human rights, women empowerment, leadership, and nurturing human values. Her awards include Green Award 2016, Social Entrepreneur Award by ISDB 2008, Rolex Award for Entrepreneurship 2006, Ashoka Fellowship, and Schwab Foundation Social Entrepreneur Award. Let's put our hands together for Ms. Roona Khan.
Miss Maliha is not that bad, but it was really Miss Bijal, but it was very interesting, because I think organizations which are working so deeply with the communities come up with I would not only say solutions, but the way towards solutions and how it can be reached. It's extremely important, and I think that is what we've heard throughout the thing today. So there are some very interesting points which I just wanted to thank you for very interesting. There are some very interesting points, the commonalities of working for a solution. So starting from the floods of Karachi, and then the impact that's happening, to a certain extent, we've all had this in our countries. We've all seen this happening. Actually, the same story over and over again. Not in or following through the contracts. Not enough vision of the ultimate aim, and the impact falls on the people who are there themselves. The same, what Vijay said, very interesting again, because it was, so in Pakistan, for example, when the floods had first started, I think it was in it was just after the earthquakes. We had the earthquake on one side, we had the floods in Rajasthan, Sindh, Punjab, and also we had the Taliban in the north at that time, and because we were working quite extensively with them. And one of the things that I had given to the Ministry of Environment in Pakistan, one of the reports was that it's going to happen over and over again, because something happens to the soil and you get so much more vulnerable. And, you know, we are used to it in Bangladesh, you know, the soil and the silt. And there is this, and you will keep seeing floods over and over again. And we keep seeing that now. And the resilience that the people are trying to build is something which they hadn't faced before, and they have to build it now, because the climate impacts which are happening are different than what was happening in Pakistan in the 50s or 60s. I really appreciate also what Vijay said regarding the waste collectors who are contributing so little, and that I think that has been the story that we have all been trying to put forward for many, many years with the climate. And of course, they are not the ones at fault who are suffering the most. Women and children, I think I would like to bring in as an example of one of our work, which is the mangrove work, which we are here, you know. So it is not a question, I think we deeply need to understand in areas where there are people who are going to be impacted or are getting impacted or have been getting impacted by the climate over years and years without perhaps their knowledge that climate is impacting them. Mitigation cannot work independent of the social side. An example is our mangrove. We say 50 pence for a tree. But how does that work? Actually, it's a social and a mitigation factor together. The 50 pence for a tree, what does it involve? It involves $3.5 more of the social insurance, ensuring that the women, the children, the unheard voices, the livelihoods, the economy, the links to the government sectors are being done, and we are working with the community for their enhancement so that they become in charge of the mangroves. Along with this, when you plant a mangrove for 50 cents, because if you do that, you don't have one plant anymore. You have all the seedlings coming because of protection, and that starts increasing, and so you have actually 500 plants for that cost of one plant. You see, because it comes in more and more, because the community is protecting it, you are protecting it, and nature itself. So much like a woman, you take, you know, and this is where the kind of a parity comes in with women and nature. You know, you are kind of ignored till you understand the strength. And in our work, especially dealing with women, there is this, we see all the time. You know, the people who are actually finding the solutions, because they are the ones at home who have the time for working and towards a solution. It was so important. So we have been working with gender and women. 85% of our work is with children and women. And as you very rightly said, you need an aspiration to follow. And this is why I keep saying that the poor can't afford poor solutions, because without that aspiration and hope, it's very difficult for continuity to happen. So going back to what friendship does also with gender and with women. So we have been working with climate since the last 20 years. We've been working with developing solutions in areas which were left ignored. So 30 years when I first went, you know, Bangladesh had become independent 30 years. And I found that these were areas people were not addressing simply because it was too difficult to go to. And we needed to find a platform from which people can take off. Because if you don't provide the basic platform, then whatever you try to give to them, it's not internalized and it doesn't become sustainable. And trying wanted to just start with health because that was the most important. We realized that without working holistically, it cannot work. You cannot work project to project. You needed to work holistically in ensuring that a community can grow, that a community can aspire, that a community knows how to make the changes happen within their own society. In the mangrove, when we started the mangrove, we are today from the private sector, we are probably doing the largest mangrove reforestation, and also our nurseries are the biggest. And it's not only one thing. It's not only mitigation. It's mitigation. It's mitigation. It's too loud. No. It's mitigation. It's the social aspect of bringing financial support, social aspect of linking the communities for an income, which they can sit in their own homes and be able to do. The women used to go out in saline water like that for fishing. Now, because of the mangroves, they can do it directly. They're earning 300 to 500 taka a day, which is like 5-6 euros a day, sometimes, often, actually. So it's a group of about 300 people who are doing it, so they take turns. But they catch fish, and it's from their own home, and they do not have to go through the suffering as they had done before. So it's a kind of a global impact which you create in the society, global impact that you create in the linkage, and every work that you have to do, this deep sense of bringing to the community the opportunity, the identity, and having that self-respect of being able to take their lives in their own hand. And I think whatever we have learned today, the end has been that the poor, who are not the victims, who are not contributing to the climate, are the victims. We all know that by now. But we need to find a holistic solution so that they can take charge of their lives and be this voice. So this is what actually, for me, this platform of COP is, because 27 years now, Salim Bhai, more needs to be done. More needs to be done, and more needs to be done in a far more synergetic, respect, understanding where the gaps are, because if you don't fill the gaps, the greeds, the single agendas, the people, communities, countries are having, and corporations and organizations are having, it's going to be so difficult, because at the end of the day, there are these millions and millions and millions who are falling in the front line. So, best of luck, and thank you.
Thank you, Runapa, and thank you everyone for joining this session. We have come to an end, but we sincerely hope you join rest of the Resilience Hub sessions. Thank you.